Welcome back to the Golden State with Mates post-game live after the Warriors get a sixth straight win. What's this? 13 in their last 15 with a 130-104 dominant victory over the Sacramento Kings at Chase Center on Thursday night. What a game. Plenty of storylines from it, but we have to start with the return of Jonathan Kuminga in what was a near perfect performance on his return from JK. 18 points in 20 minutes, 7 of 10 shooting from the floor. Looked just absolutely fantastic. Had that pop back, had that athleticism, still retained all that bounce in the fourth quarter. I think he had 3 dunks in the fourth quarter alone. So just a great return from him and a great return from the Warriors in general, it must be said. This was a team-orientated performance. Obviously, the Kuminga return is going to be the huge individual positive from it. But for the Warriors to have 8 double-digit scorers, they scored 130 points in this game, won by 26, with Steph and Curry and Jimmy Butler, the best 2 players, combining for 17 points and only taking 14 field goal attempts combined for the game. And I think that just goes to show you the way the Kings were defending, obviously putting so much attention into those 2 guys, and those 2 guys, unselfish as always, making sure they make the right reads, hit the right guys. Basically, all their teammates found themselves repeatedly wide open throughout the game. The Warriors were completely dominant for the first 15 minutes of the game. First, I should say 21 minutes of the game, up until basically 3 minutes left in the first half. They had a 23-point lead. They were seemingly making everything, and I mean everything, from three-point range. Started off with a couple of trays from Draymond. He had 3 threes in the first half, 4 for the game, a season-high 23 points for Draymond. Quinton Post had 3 threes by early in the second quarter. Gary Payton II had a couple of more threes after his 4 the other day, including he had a step-back corner 3 at the buzzer at one point where he bailed out the Warrior offense. Like, the Warriors were just striping everything from downtown, built a 23-point lead, and then there was a 6-7 minute period, I'd say, either side of halftime where they really just let Sacramento back into the game. I think the Kings went on a 27-10 run over a stretch there, either side of halftime, brought the margin from 23 all the way back to 6. Warriors just simply didn't play seriously during that time, and that might cost them against better opposition. Plenty of careless turnovers, a little bit of a struggle there offensively for a period, but once they got their butt back in business and kickstarted themselves again, they ran away with it late third and in a dominant fourth quarter. I think they took a 13-point lead to the final period and then doubled that in the fourth, allowed for some garbage time there at the end. But want to hear your guys' comments on the return of Jonathan Kuminga. It's hard not to get excited. It's hard not to get excited when you see that kind of performance where Jonathan Kuminga returns. And not to toot my own horn, but I said to you a couple of times, I said on the podcast episode yesterday, speaking about JK's return, this guy is that talented. This guy is that gifted athletically that he will just walk into 15 points if he plays the right role alongside Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler. Again, the attention those 2 guys draw, right, JK can just take advantage of that. How many times did we see, 2 guys go at Steph and JK is the one left, and he can just basically either be the one who just goes to the rim or he's the one cutting weak side. There was that one in the fourth quarter where I think Steph draws 2, he kicks it to Draymond kicks it to Gee, and then Gee draws a defender and JK cuts baseline for the dunk. And it's just perfect basketball when you've got the Kings playing that kind of defense on Steph and Jimmy, where those guys are superstar players, but they're basically like decoys out there. They are, because it's allowing their teammates to get so wide open, either from the perimeter or these continuously, and we particularly saw it in the fourth quarter with the way, JK was getting to the rim, the way Jimmy was kind of posting up and then drawing a couple of guys, and it, again, either finding open shooters or just guys under the basket. The Kings were kind of playing in a zone. They went really small in the second half. Very little of Jonas Valanciunas, who had no answer, it must be said, for Quinton Post in the first half. Like, he had no interest, Jonas Valanciunas, in getting out to Post on the perimeter. and Quinton Post just repeatedly made him pay, and that forced the Kings to go small. And then we saw some pretty limited Quinton Post minutes in the second half as well. You could kind of saw some of his defensive limitations with having to go out to the perimeter and guard some of their guards and wing guys. So that's fine. Not a Quinton Post game in the second half. He certainly took advantage of Valanciunas' kind of drop coverage in the first half. He still scored 10 points, was fine. Some pretty good stuff again in terms of protecting the rim. So, I mean, the Warriors just had so many positives across the board in this game. They played basically perfectly, I would say, aside from like the last 2 or 3 minutes of the first half and the first 2, 3, 4 minutes of the third quarter. Aside from that, legitimately perfect. They shot 57% from the floor, over 52% from three-point range. Again, did this all with Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler combining for 17 points on 14 field goal attempts. Before I get into your guys' comments, obviously congrats to Steph. We haven't mentioned it. We've gone nearly 6 minutes without mentioning it. 4,000 career threes. First one came in the first quarter on a nice driving kick from JK shortly after he entered. Found Steph basically wide open on the wing. Steph knocked that down. And then a bit of a broken play in the third quarter where Moses comes up with it, finds Steph, pump fakes on Trey Lyles, lets him fly by, sidestep three, drills it. 4,000 career threes for Steph Curry. The way he's going and the way he's obviously, it feels like not that long ago that he passed Ray Allen with the 2,973rd three. And I mean, I suppose it's been just over 3 years, and it's taken him just over 3 years to get from 3,000 to 4,000. I don't think 5,000's out of the question. I think that's a legitimate and realistic goal for him to potentially get here. So congratulations to Steph. Also, congrats to Steve Kerr, who ties our Adels with the most wins as head coach in franchise history. So well done to Steve there. He's certainly got this team playing brilliantly at the moment. Again, 13 wins in their last 15 games. What are they, 12-1 or 13-1 now, I think, with Jimmy Butler in the lineup. Some of your comments here. Priscilla says in just the first game with JK, we can see the potential of this team. Yeah, I mean, he's like when the defense is loading up so much on Steph and Jimmy, like he's just so talented. And I think he's just so much more athletically gifted and talented scoring wise than anyone else on this team. And we've seen what Jimmy has been able to do for Moses Moody and Brandon Podziemski. And again, I think if JK accepts this role willingly, he's just going to walk into 15 points every game. Like it's going to be that easy for him. We saw a couple of times where he gets mismatches, and it's easy stuff. It's not him. I mean, how many post-up opportunities did he get in this game? Barely any. He made like that kind of fade away where he's looking to draw the foul in the third quarter, I think it was, where he got it to rim home. That was probably the only one where I can think of, that was a true isolation possession. There was a couple more where he kind of got mismatches and he just drove to the rim and overpowered guys a couple of times. But like that's what you want, right? You want him to go and get to the rim when he does have mismatches. And then basically everything else was just getting, going hard in transition or just cutting to the rim at the right time, taking advantage of, two guys going at Steph. Like just simple, really simple stuff. And he ends up with 18 points on 7 of 10 shooting. Like he can do this without having to do anything fancy. Like that's what it is. Robbie says, you were right. JK can walk into 15 plus points a game if he just does what is needed. Yeah. Thenix says, congrats to Steph for 4K. JK wasn't forcing anything, just easy buckets. Absolutely. Sid says, felt like Kings didn't want to guard anyone not named Steph. Yeah, it's very true. They've done this a couple of times now. I don't think Steph did a whole lot in that first game coming out of the All-Star break, did he? I don't think he did. I think Moody and Podziemski or something or Moody and Hill might have. I'm just checking this now. This was the game on Feb 21 coming out of the All-Star break. The Warriors won 132-108. So 24-point win that time around, 26-point win, basically equivalent scoreline this time. Steph in that game had 20 points, 7 of 13 shooting. So he was okay. But again, only 13 field goal attempts. Of course, this was Jimmy went 5 of 10, 17 points. So they were a bit better in that game, but they were still led. Moody had 22, Hield had 22, Podziemski had 21. So this is kind of how the Kings play defense, and they've done it twice now in the space of under a month, and it hasn't worked out for them either time. All it's done is contributed to what is a combined 50-point loss here over 2 games. So not great if you're Sacramento. Just Below says, do you think we can get away with JK at the 2 for a big lineup of Curry, Kuminga, Butler, Draymond, Post? Yeah, well, I think Butler's the 2 in that scenario, but yes. Now, what we saw in this game, we didn't see a whole lot Kuminga Butler together. It was more so Kuminga Steph, which, as I said yesterday, it's kind of, I think, pretty important to see Steph and Kuminga together, because I do get concerned with the offensive firepower a little bit when like Draymond and Jimmy go to the bench, and it's kind of Steph and he's out there with GP2 and Looney and Gee and Buddy, that kind of lineup. So it's good to see Kuminga kind of in those kind of lineups. Robert says Portland, not Sacramento. Question mark. Have I done this thing again where I failed to change the I've done Portland Trailblazers. My apologies. This is not the first time I've done it. This is not the first time I've done it where and maybe there's going to be less viewers in the chat because of this. I've put Portland Trailblazers. It's just because I copy and paste. Bad editing on my part. I apologize to people. Then next says, always guard Steph like this. Pisses me off. Keegan Murray will not leave him. It's more so, Keon Ellis, I think, is more the one that just has the one job really to go out there and guard Steph and make it as difficult for him as possible. Robbie says, do you think if we keep playing like this, we just run the 11-man rotation till the playoffs? Yeah, obviously Pod's still out in this game. I think so. The one, I mean, I'm not loving Looney's minutes at the moment necessarily, and I think he's probably the one where, like, if you were just picking your top 10 in the rotation, he'd be the one that misses out. But in saying that, like, I think having that extra center is probably required to ensure that Draymond doesn't play so many minutes as a small ball 5. So it's tough. I think if you keep winning, then there's probably no point in limiting this from an 11-man rotation to 9 or 10. So as long as you keep winning and guys are all playing well, then I think the 11-man is fine. But if you start losing a couple of games and then there's some issues, then that's where you might have to cut it down. Basically, that's what it was at the start of the season. The Warriors were like 12 deep at the start of the season. It was kind of like, okay, this is fine until you start losing. And then obviously those losses inevitably came. And it's like, no, we have to go away from this now. Gamer F2P says, called it, all the Kuminga haters coming out of the woodworks. Berserk Monk says, nice game integration for JK. Says, those dunks and alley-oop were orgasmic. We needed this. Yeah, he had that beautiful pass from Gee on the baseline cut there, and then that well-designed play from Steve where he went backdoor and Dre found him on an alley-oop. Just great to see him, particularly in the fourth quarter where, your legs can, you haven't played for 31 games. It's been over 2 months. You'd think fourth quarter the legs might have gone a little bit. And no, he was still getting up there and throwing them down and looking fantastic. In fact, the fourth quarter was his best. What did he have in the fourth quarter of this game? He must have had close to 10 points in the fourth. Kuminga in the fourth quarter was 3 of 4, 1 of 2, 7 points, and a steal in the fourth. Just looked really energized and engaged as well. So absolutely fantastic. Berserk Monk says Gee played really great as well. Gamer FTP says flowers to Gee, Buddy, and GP. Flowers to everyone. Like everyone legit did their role in this game perfectly. Gee goes 2 of 2, 5 points, couple of rebounds, couple of assists, plus 16 in this game. No other Warrior was more than a plus 7. You had Gee as a plus 16. Draymond was a plus 7. Moody was a plus 7. And then you had a bunch of guys, Curry, Kuminga were plus 5. So, yeah, Gee Santos, impact. Oh, geez, my face is really itchy. I apologize. I keep scratching my face. Robbie says, JK can help Jimmy focus on facilitating during the regular season. Yeah, there's going to be times where, I still did get frustrated a little bit by Jimmy's passiveness scoring-wise. Like, there are a couple of times where he's got, like, Ellis on him and there's a mismatch there size-wise, or even a guy like Levine. Like, Levine's not known for his defense. And I'm just saying, Jimmy, just go to work. Just get us a bucket at the rim. Like, you can do that. And he can. Like, he's capable of doing that. But he wants to get his teammates involved. He wants to play the right way. And I think he knows that there's going to be a time and place, particularly come playoff time, where he needs to be scoring Jimmy. But right now, this team has enough talent where he can try and make things easier and make things better for his teammates. So I appreciate that. Jackson says GP2 suddenly a splash brother. Man, he's got to keep the mask on. This guy's drilling him from deep. Like that corner step back three hit. I was like, what is going on? Absolutely wild stuff. But another excellent game from him in double digits, 11 points. Again, the Warriors had 8 scorers in double figures. Draymond, 23. Kuminga, 18. Moody, 17. Is this the best combined game Kuminga and Moody have ever played together? Like with a full rotation, like alongside Steph and Jimmy and Dre, or Steph and Dre at least, because obviously Jimmy's only been here short term. But is that the best game Kuminga and Moody have played together with Steph and Draymond? 18 points for Kuminga, 7 of 10 shooting. Moses, 17 points, 4 of 7, 4 of 6 from deep, 5 of 6 from the line, and 4 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals, and a block. Moses Moody, man. I've already seen some stuff on the Twitter timeline. We've been waiting years for this. And this is what I go back to like yesterday when I was talking about JK. And I talk about like drafted guys. And that still means a lot to me. And I know it means a lot to fans. Is like guys that get drafted here, there's an attachment there when you can see these guys grow up in front of your own eyes, right? And they grow up from 18-year-old kids in their rookie year, they're raw, not necessarily having too much of an impact. And, they often have a struggle. Like it's often a long, windy path with plenty of roadblocks before they finally break through. And that's what we've been like. How many roadblocks have JK and Moses faced throughout their first 4 years in the league? So many. And that makes it all the more sweeter when they have games like this where those two guys were so good in a dominant Warrior victory, and hopefully now we see plenty more of it. It just means so much more, I think, as from a fan's perspective, when you can see these guys who are homegrown talent, drafted by the franchise, have faced plenty of roadblocks and struggles throughout the first few years of their career, and now they're just finally breaking through and together, right? Both of these guys. We saw JK do what he did prior to the injury, bounces back, has this big game on return today. And then Moses, basically over the last long stretch now, a month, 6 weeks, has just been excellent. And now he's a solidified starter on this team. Nick says Warriors start winning, everyone around us joins the party. Just below says JK, the 2, Curry, Kuminga, Butler, Green, Post. Yeah, it's certainly an interesting lineup. We'll wait and see what different combinations we see. We saw an intriguing, I think, lineup towards the end of the first half, but it was only a couple of minutes where it was Steph, Moody, Butler, Kuminga, Draymond, those 5 together. I think that interests me as well. But certainly I want to see more Kuminga alongside Jimmy, and I want to see more Kuminga alongside Post. Some of the stuff where Kuminga, yes, he's playing alongside Steph, and he's also, but like Looney's there as well. And this is the issue I have with Looney. Like I'd much rather Post see some of those minutes than Looney when Kuminga's out on the floor. But you can't have it all, and I understand why Looney's got to play. I get it. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the kind of rotations and rotation patterns figure out here, particularly as, we expected Kuminga to be, I said yesterday, he's going to be on 18, 20 minutes. That's probably going to be the case for the next couple of games. And then he'll start ramping up, and then it'll really come down to Steve on how much he wants to play JK. And I don't know what it's going to be. Is it going to be, back to what he was prior to injury where he's 30 plus minutes? Maybe not. Maybe it's 26 to 30 minutes. How many guys on this team really need to play more than 30 minutes? It's probably Steph and Jimmy, and that's about it. So it's going to be fascinating, that's for sure. Thanek says we are 2 games from 4th, and the Lakers have a tough schedule. Yeah, Lakers lost 126-106 today to the Milwaukee Bucks. Just checking the updated standings now, with the Warriors now 10 games above 500, if you can believe that. 38-28 on the season. Just so frustrating. None of these teams around us will lose. Like the Rockets won yesterday, the Grizzlies won yesterday, the Timberwolves won yesterday, the Clippers won yesterday. I suppose the big thing about this win today means that the Kings are now 4.5 games back of the Warriors in the 9th seed. And so at the absolute least, the Warriors should be finishing 8th. And that's worst possible result. They should be finishing 8th, which gives you 2 chances at the play-in tournament. That should not be the goal. Obviously, the goal should be to retain the top 6 spot, even potentially move up. But I think that 4.5 game span now between the 6 seed Warriors and the 9 seed Kings. And obviously the Mavericks are falling off a cliff. The Suns aren't doing anything either. I mean, that's just turned to hot garbage. Like we've basically got our top 8 now in the playoffs, I think. And it's going to take obviously a major upset in the playing tournament for either the 9th or 10th seed to make it. Now, maybe the Suns could be dangerous in an elimination scenario, maybe, but the Warriors, they shouldn't be thinking about that. They should be thinking about top 6, obviously, and then if they did fall, then that would be disappointing at this point. It'd be disappointing, but they'd still have 2 opportunities in the playing tournament. So the 8th seed's the absolute bare minimum at this point, and then hopefully can work our way up from the 6th seed at the moment, where the Rockets and the Lakers are both 3 games ahead, 4th and 5th. The Lakers obviously without LeBron at the moment, so we're going to wait and see what happens. Potentially, like, the Warriors, like, surpass the Lakers, maybe? I don't know. There's only, what do we got now? 16 games left for the Warriors. The Lakers still have 18 to play, and the Rockets have 16 as well. So can 3 games be made up? Potentially. And I think I thought the Rockets were the team that are in trouble, but all of a sudden the Lakers with this LeBron injury, maybe they're the one that could be in a little bit of jeopardy there. Robbie says, wonder how quick JK gets off. Minutes restriction, he had real bounce this game. Yeah, I think, it's a long absence, 31. I'm not a doctor. I don't know this stuff, but I'm assuming he might have a couple more at around this 20, 22 minute mark. And then from there, we'll go. We'll obviously wait and see what he looks like in the next couple of games. But from this one, he looked great. Hopefully bumps that up to 25, 26 within a few games. Berserk Monk says, Kerr did throw out some weird lineup combo, probably because Draymond was in foul trouble with Steph, GPT, Moody. I think JK and Butler was weird seeing Butler play the 5. Yeah, it was a brief period in the third quarter where that happened, where I think was because of the Draymond foul trouble, or what was going on, because Kuminga came in and looked like there was some confusion on who was actually going out. And I thought it was going to be Butler. I thought it was going to be Kuminga in for Butler. And then Jimmy stood there and just no one went off the floor. And then eventually Draymond did. And then all of a sudden you had a lineup where it was, as you say, like Butler and Kuminga, the 4-5 combination. And you know what? If the Kings are going to go super small like they didn't, if other teams are going to go super small, I'm not totally against it. I know that sounds weird, but if it means you maybe remove some of the Looney minutes, then maybe that's what you got to go to. I don't know. Could you go like just a bunch of forwards, right? Where like it's not even Draymond, but it's like a front court of Gee, Jimmy, and Kuminga. Like Kuminga's obviously got to rebound well, and you can't play it against most teams, right? But the Kings went super small in the second half, so you could kind of get away with it. It happened for. I'm just trying to check the third quarter here. It happened for, I reckon, a grand total of a minute, maybe, if that, because then Looney came basically straight in. So at 7:15, Peyton subbed in for Post. And then, at 8:34, Kuminga came in for Green, and then at 7:15, Peyton subbed in for Post. From the 7:15 mark down to the 6:44 mark, so it was 30 seconds. It was 31 seconds where it was like 3 possessions where we had a lineup with Steph, Moody, Kuminga, Butler, and Peyton. Interesting. Jack says Looney still has positive effects, especially with second chance opportunities. Yeah, like he's not playing badly. I just think if you were to like pick your top 10 players right now, I think he'd be the 11th. I'd probably have Gee over him. But that's just picking your top 10 players. That's not, working out rotations and stuff like that. Robbie said they played Butler at the 5 for a bit because they had Keegan Murray at the 5. Yeah, you could get away with it. I mean, it happened for 31 seconds, I think. Moody's becoming one of them, a 3-and-D player, says GameRef2P. Berserk Monk says Moody has taken Wiggins' role. Good point. Robbie says, I hope JK resigns. I want to see him, Pods and Moody keep playing together. Yeah, I mean, the great thing with this is like those three guys playing together, playing well at the moment. Obviously, Pods has missed the last few games here with the back concern, which is a bit frustrating. But those three guys have Moody and Pods really been great recently, and then JK was really good before the injury and has a great return game here. And all of a sudden, like it does make it all the more fantastic in that the Warriors are playing so well at the moment. The short term looks good, and you're giving Steph and Jimmy and Draymond a chance. But the future, when you've got Kuminga, Moody, Pods, and dare I say Quinton Post, like all of a sudden the future looks okay as well. And you still got like there's still moves you could potentially make in the offseason. Like the Warriors still have basically all their picks up their sleeve. They'll obviously relinquish this one this year to Miami. That they owe the top 20 protected one to Washington in 2030. But aside from that, they've got all their future first round picks. It's intriguing. Gamer F2P says, I personally think Moody is a better point of attack defender than Wiggins. Wiggins had the jump shot, they had the jump contest, but Moody really disruptive on players shooting. Interesting. I'm not sure I'm willing to go there with you, but I think Moses has certainly improved the defensive part of the game, which I think is like almost, I think this kind of offensive stuff he's had for a while. Like I think he's always, I mean, he's a career, 37, 38% 3-point shooter. Like he's always been a decent shooter. I think it's more so the defensive side that has actually allowed him to play significant minutes for Steve over these last few weeks. Berserkman says, we got to see Moody go like a Tatum or Luka first to say he's better. I agree with that. Just below. Couldn't watch the first 40 games. You are the source. Do you think we could package Looney and Kuminga or Moody for a big in the offseason? Saw a Bleacher Report the other day suggest Buddy Hield and Moses for Jakob Poeltl, which I think is the other thing here. Like Moody all of a sudden is on like a really, really good, if he's going to just be this guy, which is a starting caliber player, and you got a starting caliber player making, just over $12 million a season, like that's a great value contract. And all of a sudden teams might be asking about him in the offseason and the Warriors might be able to cash in, but I wouldn't be cashing in, because if you're the Warriors and you're paying Steph, Jimmy, Dre, and then you're thinking about paying Kuminga potentially $30 million a season, you're going to need every good team-friendly contract you can get, and I wouldn't be giving that up easily. Like if I'm trading this version of Moses Moody, it better be as part of a bigger package for a star or for a type of player we desperately need. And I'm not sure Jakob Poeltl's that guy. Like I'm pretty happy with what Quinton Post doing at the moment. Now things could definitely change in the playoffs, but you've still got Looney. Why would you pay Jakob Poeltl $20 million a year, which is what he's on now, give up Moses Moody and Buddy Hield in the process when you could probably just bring Loon back on a veteran minimum in free agency, right? And have Quinton Post. Now, do they need another big man option? Maybe, like hopefully Trace has a big off season. Who knows? But I'm not as concerned. I mean, the Quinton Post thing is a revelation, man. I was just watching that guy in the first half again. He hit 3 threes. Do you know what was the most impressive three for me? It was one he missed, where he got the ball. I think Moses was opening on the wing, got closed down, flicked it to Quinton in the corner. He was like relatively wide open, and he caught the ball and he didn't even bring it down. He did not even bring it down, and he just shot it straight up, and he missed it, and he only rimmed out or whatever. But I was just like, that's a 7-foot guy who didn't even bring the ball down on release, and I'm wondering what other 7-foot guys can do that in the league? Like that is so rare. Like this guy is legitimately a rare player in the NBA, a legit rare player. To be this good a 3-point shooter at that size is remarkable. And so, like, again, watching him today, and again, he had a block, some of his rim protection stuff was reasonably good again. So he's improving, I think, pretty rapidly on that end of the floor. Wasn't his, like, when he gets switched out and he's got to go down the perimeter, that's a problem. But it's a problem for most 7-foot guys, right? There's not many 7-foot guys who are good at that. So, I mean, he's a revelation. Didn't do a whole lot in the second half. The box score doesn't say a whole lot. What was he? 10 points. He played. What did he play? How many minutes did he play in the second half? Like 8, maybe? Less than 7, 6:44. And then he finishes the game with 10 points, 4 rebounds, a steal, a block, a couple of turnovers. Was a plus was a +9 in this game. Sorry, I don't know. The plus minus I was going through before, I think I was looking at the first half or the second half because I've just completely misread that. I was going through it before. I'm an idiot. Gee was a +21 in the game, not a +16. Still led the way, so that was right. Buddy was a +17. Credit Buddy Hield. His third quarter was extraordinary and at a point where the Kings were actually mounting a fight back. So it was important. And so his third quarter, I thought was really good on both ends. Some of the defensive stuff he was doing, like he had one where he tipped the ball away from Levine, went and got it, gave the ball to Kuminga. Kuminga got fouled, went to the free throw line. So Buddy a +17, Curry was a +15, Moses and Draymond +12, GP2 Looney +11, Kuminga +8, Post +9. Yeah, I was reading the plus minus of maybe just the fourth quarter. I think I was literally looking at the plus minus of the fourth quarter. Berserk Monk says Knicks, Nuggets, and Bucks are the upcoming games. Really want to see what we do when we face legit skill bigs. Yeah. Modded Jot, what happened with GS in the fourth quarter? We dominated? Or Guy Santos you're talking about? Is GS Golden State or Guy Santos? No Name says Draymond had 4 fouls in that moment in regards to the third quarter. AES says Timberwolves next 2 games of Utah and Orlando. Any chance of them like losing a game, please? Wouldn't mind some separation. No Name says, wonder if we'll see Steph, Jimmy, JK, TJD in post. Don't think so. Although I did find it funny at the end of the game where they had Loon and TJD playing together in garbage time minutes. Thought that was hilarious. That will never happen again. Unless it's garbage time, of course. Just Blow says Looney's great for the franchise, but he hurts us as a non-scorer in any lineup. Yeah, you got to be very particular with what lineups you use. Jack says Moody at this level of 3&D, and we're only paying $10 million a year. Yeah, and you're just not going to get rid of that. Like you're not going to give that easily. And like a guy like Jakob Poeltl, I'm just not doing that because he doesn't like he brings spacing concerns, particularly if you're going to pay Kuminga, particularly obviously with Jimmy. Draymond, like, I just looked at that trade and laughed. You're just not doing that. Robbie says, do you think JK playing like this after missing 30 plus games could one day be an all-star? I still have high hopes. I guess like the biggest positive is like he's just going to eat. He's just going to eat playing alongside Steph and Jimmy, and he's just got to look at a game like today and look at how easily I did it. Like basically he can just look at it and say, I don't need to force the issue. If I just do all the right things, I'm going to just be able to completely dominate the paint and get 15 to 20 points every game. Like that's how it's, there's going to be other games where they ask, teams ask Steph and Jimmy to be scorers, and then, Kuminga and others might be quieter. Like that's what it is. But like JK is like that talented. It's an easy 15, 20 points a game for him. AES says Moody lacks lateral quickness, but his wingspan makes up for it. Wiggs still better at D. Yeah, I'm not saying that Moody's a better defender than Wiggins quite yet. Just Blue says Warriors are great at ignoring the hype and seeing system potential in their picks. Well, I certainly saw the hype, I think, with Kuminga. Like he was a high upside X factor play, but particularly like post. Man, you got to question what other teams were doing when this guy can be taken 52nd. Enough Crypto says QP looked like clay on that quick shot, but missed, but it was close. Yeah, it's the one I was talking about in terms of the corner 3, which a lot of like big guys can shoot, but it's like it's a long release or it's a slow release kind of thing. He's like a genuine. What about that one in the early second quarter where both teams hit a couple of threes kind of back to back, and then I think Moody got a steal, and then QP was like kind of trailing the play, but it was also like in transition, and Moses hit it back to him at the top of the arc, and there was still like it was basically 2-on-2 in that situation. Like the other guys on both teams were like down the other end of the floor still, and QP just pulled it with no hesitation and nailed it. And I was like, man, this guy's 7 foot tall doing this stuff. It's ridiculous. Berserk Monk says, I think Levine was nearly -40. He was a -34. He played 32 minutes and was a -34. How does that happen? I had a good mate of mine message me during the game. He said, the Kings have a good team on paper. And I said, I agree, but all individually. And all those individual guys have never done anything in the playoffs. Right. What's Zach LaVine? What's his big playoff moment? DeMar DeRozan, what's he really done in the playoffs aside from, being part of a Toronto team that consistently just got beat up by LeBron? Right? What's Domantas Sabonis done in the playoffs? What's Malik Monk really done in the playoffs? So they've got all these really good players individually, but none of them have really had success from a team standpoint. And I think that's just showing in what they're doing now. Like, this is a team that's probably not going to make the postseason. I think the top 8 is pretty locked in. That is kind of the best 8 teams in the conference. So, again, good team on paper. And LaVine is a big numbers guy. He's having a very, very good season. But I think the Warriors certainly made the right decision in bypassing him for Jimmy Butler. There's no doubt about that at this point. Enough Crypto says JK will certainly be an all-star next year. Let's hope so. Just Below says if Loon could shoot 35, 38% from 3, he'd be the best big we've ever had, sadly. AES says, we dodged a bullet in regard to LaVine. Just Below says, ever since Wise and we decided to pick with our eyes, not social media. Well, I want to give a little bit of credit because the JK Moody drafting for a long time has been seen as not great. When you could have had Franz Wagner at 8 or at 7 and he was taken at 8. And then even when Moody, you could have had Trey Murphy, you could have had Şengün. And I think at this point, it's like if you just translated what Wagner's doing on Orlando and what Şengün's doing on Houston, what Trey Murphy is doing with New Orleans, like what they're doing right now, if you just translated that to the Warriors, then you'd probably still prefer those guys. But it's not like it's a huge draft miss. And I think that's what we're seeing now is like Kuminga still has all-star potential and Moody is showing himself as a starting caliber player. And so, yes, like you could have taken an all-star in Şengün after that, but that's like nitpicking when if you get a good starting quality player with pick 14 in the draft, that's a good result. And you're just nitpicking if you're looking at better players after that. So, I think maybe some apologies need to go to Bob Myers because for a long time it's been seen like that was a stuff up, and now particularly when these two guys play so well after a game like this, it's like no, like they're two good selections. Yes, you might have done a little bit better, but they're still pretty good hits. Robbie says, once the vets retire, Pods, Moody, JK, Gee, and Post are winning the chip. I'm not going to go that far, but I didn't even mention Gee in that quartet or in that fivesome before. I mentioned the quartet of Pods, Moody, JK, and Post. Gee deserves to be in there. And Gee was a 50-something overall pick as well. What was Gee sent? Like 55? I think they've got Gee at 55, Post at 52, TJD at 57. That's wild. Just below, DeRozan killed for Bulls in the playoffs. He's the only exception. Did he win a playoff series with the Bulls? Don't think so. Vern says chemistry, ? Chemistry looked great in this one. Just below says, do you think it's our picks or development? That's always got to be a combination of both. Berserk Monk says, DeRozan probably wishes he was his peak age during the 2012 era. Kind of, I don't want to hate on DeMar DeRozan. He's had an excellent career, but kind of sums up his career when he has 23, 5, and 7, 8 of 13 shooting, gets to the free throw line, goes 7 of 8, and his team loses by 26. AES says we still have not faced a top 5 team at full strength. True. That's why the Bucks and Nuggets back-to-back upcoming here is going to be really important. The Knicks obviously on Saturday, but the Knicks will be without Jalen Brunson, so that's without their best player there. Obviously, Sabonis missing in this game. Not that they beat the Kings by 24 a few weeks ago with Sabonis in the lineup. So, we'll wait and see. There's certainly more challenges to come, but at this point, you just got to rack up the wins. Jack says, don't forget JP3. Didn't we pick him up at 60? Massive contribution in 21-22. No, Jordan Poole was a late first round pick. Was 28th? 28th, was he? If I remember correctly. Jordan Poole was drafted 28th overall in 2019. Yeah. Berserk Max says, Knicks with Cat will be very interesting, though. Draymond will not be able to cheat off of centers like he did against Mitch Robinson and Achua. Very true. Just Play says, DeMar's legacy would be insane if Bron didn't strangle the East. Poor guy. Yeah, he's had an excellent career. Excellent career. Don't want to hate, but he just hasn't obviously had the ultimate success and he's not the only one. There's a lot of veteran players who, haven't had the ultimate success. A guy like Levine is, been in the league over 10 years now, and he's never really had playoff success. So there's a lot of guys like this who are very, very good players. They put up big numbers, but they can never. It's really tough when a guy like guys like DeRozan and Levine, who are, I suppose, at times the best player on their team, and they're very, very good players, but no one's suggesting that DeMar DeRozan or Zach LaVine can be the best player on a championship team. There's only really a handful of guys that can be that. Warriors might have two of them with Steph and Jimmy. Steph, we know, obviously, and then Jimmy has led a pretty average Miami Heat team to 2 NBA finals in the last 5 years. So that's what really it comes down to, I think, when it comes to playoff time, is that the Warriors have a couple of these guys who you could consider as potentially being the best player on a championship team. And that's pretty rare, right? Alrighty, I'm going to finish it up there. We've been going over 41 minutes. Thank you very much to those of you that tuned in, even though that I put it as Warriors versus Trailblazers post-game live. Apologies for that. I stuffed up the plus minus before. I don't know. It's not being great. I'm still, for any Australians out there that are watching this or watching it on replay or listening via the podcast feed, I'm still like gobsmacked and shocked at the fact Richmond beat Carlton last night. Just genuinely one of the most shocking results I can remember in recent sporting memory. For NBA fans, I'm trying to think of an equivalent, because Carlton aren't like the top team in the league by any means, but it'd be like the Wizards. Let's say like the Wizards were down by 25 to the Warriors and then like came back in the second half and won. Could you just imagine that? That was basically the equivalent of what Richmond did to Carlton last night. It was just genuine. I was watching it thinking, what is going on? And maybe my brain's a bit frazzled after that, and that's why I didn't switch the Trailblazers over to the Kings, and why I was reading plus minus from only the fourth quarter and trying to claim that it was the entire game. Jack says, come on, dude, it's Carlton. They're still coming. They're still cooking. They're still cooking from that off-season advert or whatever they were doing. I reckon that's 2012 or something like that. That was kind of crazy. They're still cooking from that. Obviously, as a big Collingwood fan, just watching Carlton suck, watching Carlton fail. I live for that. And we were terrible last weekend. We lost to GWS by 52, but at least GWS are probably going to be a finals I think they're premiership favourites now. And Carlton just lost to a team that I thought, if I set their over-under win line for the year, was probably 1.5 wins, I'd say. I reckon Richmond, yeah, that might be one of 2 or 3 wins for the season, but good on them. Unbelievable performance last night. An unbelievable performance from the Warriors today. 130-104 victory over the Kings. I'll finish it up there. Thank you very much to those of you that have tuned in and commented. Thanks to those of you that are watching on replay or listening via the podcast feed. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel already, that would be greatly appreciated. Follow me at POK252. That's POK252 on X/Twitter. I'll be back for a post-game live after Saturday's game against the New York Knicks. Let's hope the Warriors can move 11 games above 500. Things are getting pretty crazy right now. Cheers, guys.